Atlanta 911, operator 7959. What's the address to your emergency?
Sir, I'm at the entrance of Piedmont Park. I just was searching for my girlfriend's purse because I couldn't find her. She's dead. She's here at Piedmont Park. Please help.
This is the murder of Katherine Janness and Bowie. 40-year-old Katie lived in Midtown Atlanta, a bustling city of culture. Katie was a musician and songwriter, having spent her younger years performing in a band. She was now happily settled with her partner Emma and their 2 rescue dogs in an apartment in Midtown. The couple both worked at restaurants. Katie was a bartender at Campanale and Emma worked at Henry's. Katie was well known in the community as being friendly and warm with a passion for books. Katie's life would be tragically cut short alongside her faithful companion Bowie. It was a warm July evening and Katie had ventured to take Bowie for a walk. It was heading towards the twilight hour when she decided to venture out. With Emma and Katie working in the bar and restaurant industry, Bowie had become accustomed to late night walks. Midtown was always busy, day and night. Katie felt comfortable walking the streets at night, especially with Bowie by her side. Katie walked by Emma's workplace, briefly saying hi. This was around 11:30 p.m. Emma was about to finish her shift and would be home soon. Katie headed across Midtown's famous Rainbow Crosswalk as she headed towards nearby Piedmont Park. The time was 12:09 a.m. Emma had finished her shift and cycled home, but became worried when Katie and Bowie were not there. She tried to call Katie's cell, but didn't get a response. She looked on the Find My Phone app and could see that Katie's location is stationary at the park. She got back on her bicycle and headed to the park. As she entered the park gates, she could make out something on the floor. To her horror, as she got closer, she saw Bowie laying there. Frantically, she called out for Katie. Further down the pathway, she could make out a figure laid under a tree. As she approached, she could see Katie's blood-stained body. She checked for a pulse, but it was clear Katie was deceased. Emma ran to the safety of the park gates and called 911.
Where's she at in the park?
She's right near the entrance, like, I don't know how to explain it. Did you just see that? That's my girlfriend.
As Atlanta PD arrived, they began to examine the brutal scene. The crime scene was haunting and would concern detectives to the extent they'd consult the FBI the following day. Emma was taken to the police station, where officers attempt to gather as much information as they can about Katie. There was something sinister about this crime. As Emma began to process the loss of her partner and her dog, the autopsy of Katie was completed. The body had been found with $5 in the jeans pocket and 1 earbud. The jeans and underwear had been pulled down to the knees, but there were no visible signs of sexual assault. A rape kit was used. The face had been stabbed over 15 times. There were cuts to the eyebrows, eyelids, nose, mouth, and a cut so severe that it had disfigured the left side of the face. The injuries were in a crisscrossed motion. The throat had been slashed, deeply and crudely. Both breasts had been stabbed and mutilation was present. A very deep cut ran down the body from below the ribcage to the groin. The letters T, F, and A had been crudely incised on the higher stomach region. There were stab wounds on the back and lower back regions, some deep enough that they had punctured the lung. There were 2 bloodstains found on the inside of the thighs, but no wounds were present in that area. This murder was clearly overkill. As the news broke of Katie and Bowie's murder, the community both mourned and became fearful. Police warned people not to go to the park alone. Women began buying weapons to protect themselves. As a memorial grew outside the park, the real issue here was who would commit this type of murder. A reward of $10,000 was offered, with Peter adding another $10,000. The police were right to call the FBI on this murder. This crime had all the indicators of a dangerous offender. The park itself was not actively monitored by CCTV. The systems there were outdated and non-operational, but the 9 cameras had remained up as a visual deterrent. A CCTV camera facing the park entrance captured 6 people who were in the vicinity of the crime. A jogger captured leaving the park very close to the time frame of the crime did come forward, but it's unclear what information he provided to law enforcement. Did he identify a potential suspect? It's unknown which route Katie took that night or who she may have encountered. Piedmont Park has multiple entrances located on 10th Street, and this is presuming Katie chose the direct route to the park from Henry's. The image captured on the crosswalk shows that she's heading towards the park via this route. It's unknown if she chose to walk on the pathway adjacent to the main road or chose the pathway at the edge of the park that would lead directly to the gates, where their bodies would be found. Bowie's body was found in the main roadway of the park. Katie's body was found further away from Bowie's on a grass verge. Could she have been trying to flee the attack? Atlanta's police chief and mayor have both given press conferences addressing the murder in an attempt to calm the community. Online rumours had begun to circulate that there is a serial killer on the loose. But months later, and no one has been arrested for the murder of Katie and Bowie or any suspects identified. Midtown does see its fair share of crimes, mostly in the form of robberies and thefts from vehicles. Violent crimes occur, but nothing that matches the severity of what happened to Katie. There have been many rumours circulating online about who the attacker could be, with Katie's partner Emma being one of those accused of the murder.
They'd call my phone and leave me a voicemail. She called me a murderer, female dog, and then said that I would be caught. I'd like for them to come out and say that I had nothing to do with it, because I did not have anything to do with it. And I can say that 100 times and it doesn't be like, of course she's gonna say that, you know what I mean? Like, of course. But it is the truth.
When the 911 call was released publicly, many accused Emma's demeanour of being a bit off and her timeline of that night a little hazy. To further fuel this, a GoFundMe account was set up for Katie. Thanks to people's generosity, the funds reached $79,000. Katie's body was released by the medical examiner on 11th of August, meaning the funds covered the funeral costs for Katie. The remainder of the funds were used by Emma to purchase a condo and pay a few debts. Emma did not contribute any of the money towards the reward fund or fund something that could honour or memorialise Katie and Bowie. As morally questionable these actions have been, the severity of Katie's injuries put Emma at the bottom of the suspect list. Emma's father has become a spokesperson of sorts, making claims DNA was found on the body and Bowie died protecting Katie. But Atlanta Police Department have neither confirmed or denied this. They also refuse to publicly exclude Emma as a suspect. Another GoFundMe was set up by members of the community to buy a memorial bench. There are a lot of concerning factors surrounding Katie's murder. First and foremost is the fact that Bowie was attacked and killed. Whoever committed this murder felt the need to incapacitate the dog. Katie's wounds were in one word, horrific, and bear all the hallmarks of a lust killer. The attacker stabbed the face extensively, cut the neck so deeply that the vertebrae in the neck were damaged, then mutilated the breast area before eviscerating the stomach area. The letters F.A. were etched on the right side of the chest, and the letter T on the left side of the chest. This was not the behaviour of a hurried, frenzied type of attack. There was a multicoloured tattoo on the back of the victim. The attacker repeatedly stabbed at the area of the tattoo. It's a type of action that's targeted. There were several deep stab wounds in the back that penetrated the lung and aorta. This shows the victim was attacked from behind, at some point in the altercation, with a sharp weapon, with the blade long enough to inflict 3-inch deep wounds, but still sharp enough to etch letters on the skin. The fact the jeans and underwear at the knee could suggest this was some kind of act of degradation to the victim, but then they could have fallen down in the scuffle. There were multiple blunt force injuries on the head, face and body of the victim. Again, this is multiple methods of attack. The victim had blood in the fingernails alongside defensive wounds on the hands, forearms and fingers. This type of attack was chaotic, yet methodical. A lust killer's typical MO is overkill. This was clearly present at the crime scene. The lust killer will mutilate the victim's body with a particular focus on sexual regions. To be clear, the lust killer does not choose all sexual regions because the act of stabbing and mutilation is, in itself, a form of gratification, known as picarism. The killer will favour the areas they find sexually stimulating, so the tattoo Katie had may in some ways form some sort of erotic trigger in the killer, as opposed to the initial suspicion that this was in some way a hate crime. Atlanta PD were quick to dismiss this was a hate crime. This killer exhibited what is called a disorganised type of crime scene, suggesting the killer targeted the victim was an act of pure impulsion, and why they were so brazen to complete the attack. This type of killer's impulses overrides the risk of being caught. The murder occurs at the location of the attack. This type of killer can damage the facial features of the victim to dehumanise them. They crave upon mutilation. As the autopsy showed, the letters T, A and F had been carved on the stomach. It's not clear if they intended to spell the word fat as it would be written reversed, or if it had some other symbolism. However, lust killers gain a thrill from mutilation, and this was no doubt yet another component and may in some way give a clue to the offender's own insecurities. The victim was of a healthy average build. This type of killer sits in the atypical loner category, has problems with social interactions and isn't able to maintain relationships, yet is angered by their own inability to have them. Geographically, they tend to be tied in some way to the area, either by living there or having family connected to the area. This could also explain why the person hasn't been caught. Loners are the trickiest because their activity goes unnoticed. In this instance, whomever committed this crime could have had visible bloodstains, bite marks, or slash-type injuries. Disclaimer, this is just my own analysis. There hasn't been a murder that bears the same hallmarks as this since July, meaning that you cannot rule out that the offender may have some way been familiar to Katie. This was a senseless and tragic murder. Katie and Bowie deserve justice. If anyone has any information relating to this case, please call Crime Stoppers on 404 577 TIPS.